it's not an easy thing to, to use technology, though it's very much an enabler. And despite the fact that I'm at least coming to you from Bangalore, which is supposed to be the high-tech city of India, it's taken me a few minutes to wrap my head around how I'm going to be, getting the right way to get this conversation live. But namaskara, as I greet all of you, welcome you to a very, very important conversation. And why do I declare it important even before you have heard it, is because it's not something that has its information available very easily. I'm talking about the crisis that has unfolded in India's neighborhood, in Afghanistan, and what we have seen since the past few weeks has made many of us feel very, very helpless. And at the same time, there aren't many people who can really tell us what's happening on ground. We do have our media and information sources, but the good news is that today I have somebody with me who has been there on the ground in Afghanistan, and therefore I have great privilege and pleasure in welcoming him as well as my other guests onto the show. I'm Vasanthi Hariprakash, a member of the Network of Women in Media India. Now, NWMI is a network of women journalists, women from print, broadcast, electronic, digital media. And therefore, I have, first of all, my colleague from there, Yirmiyan Arthur. Welcome to the show, Yirmiyan. And then you and I get to welcome this very celebrated and an important media person who has done groundbreaking work in Afghanistan, David Guttenfelder. David, welcome to the show. Yes, David, you are just one click away from being heard by the country and the world.
Thank you very much to all of you. I appreciate being here.
It's about 8-ish, I'm guessing, in the part of the United States where you are joining us from. So a day is just beginning for you, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Glad to join you this morning and this afternoon and evening in India.
Right. And of course, as David comes to us from Minneapolis, Yirmiyan, I take this chance to ask you about the fundraiser that the Network of Women in Media India has put together to reach out to women journalists in Afghanistan. Now, having told all our viewers what let's say this network is, we believe in promoting responsible journalism. We also believe in standing in solidarity with women and media women in distress. But the idea of raising funds, how did this come about? How did this start? And would you like to tell everybody what exactly and how people can help?
I remember the date very precisely. It was August 15th, and it was the evening, and Lakshmi Murthy, who is like a co-founder of the NWMI, her email popped up, and of course, like all of us who are watching, we've all been very, very concerned about developments there, and so was I. And when this email popped up, and for a long time, we've all been feeling really helpless and feeling kind of despair. So, and Lakshmi is somebody that I think a lot of us look up to, at least I do. So, and then her email was just like, it was like a wake-up call, like we need to do more, we need to either we need to be writing more, telling more stories, we need to be, pressurizing this government to get more visas, allow more people from Afghanistan to take shelter here, or we need to raise funds. So that, I don't know how much we can really put pressure on the government or anything like that, unfortunately. But when the thing about funds came in, suddenly it just it was really spontaneous. It was like funds, hey, the AP has done marvelous job. Really, if you look at all the agencies, and not disrespecting anybody else, but then the AP has really been there on the ground. And this war has also cost AP big losses, Anya, a lot of you would know, the kind of things that the AP has gone through, and I'm not going to speak too much on that, but so this happened. And so I was like, maybe we could use photographs to raise funds, because I mean, all of us are aware that there are a lot of fundraisers going on out there. And we thought maybe, like maybe this would be a way, some way. And then that's basically how it happened. And then, with writing to AP for permission, and then it just came like in less than 24 hours. And then we were like, really, now we have this, now what are we going to do? So that's how it started to cut, like, yeah. And then we're here now. Yeah.
We have with us a very special guest, and I'm going straight to him, David Guttenfelder, who's a documentary photographer, a National Geographic explorer, who has been focusing on geopolitical conflict as well as conservation. Now, the special thing with David is that Afghanistan, which despite being in India's neighborhood, not many of us have traveled to, even as tourists. It's not a very easy country to understand either, beyond the stereotypes. So tonight, on this conversation, let me ask David, who spent a decade in Afghanistan post September 9/11, on what you actually saw, unfold before your eyes, David. And when you went there first, did you know something already that was changed during your stay? Welcome to the show again.
Thank you very much. Yeah, a quick sort of view of what I did and saw in Afghanistan was, I went for the first time immediately following 9/11. I was sent to neighboring Pakistan. I entered Afghanistan over the border, and I went to Tora Bora near Jalalabad, where there were ongoing battles by the US-led military against the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, and that included Osama bin Laden, who we thought then and know now he was there before returning to Pakistan. I kept going back to Afghanistan, working for the Associated Press over the course of 10, 12 years. Most of the work that I was doing for several years after 9/11 was photographing sort of life and the upheaval of Afghans' lives as a result of not only the US war, but generations of war. And I guess I thought at the time naively that the war was over, and what I was there to see and to document was I guess the changes brought about by the war. But year by year the war escalated, American involvement increased, the security in the country deteriorated, and so the last several years of my work there was entirely military based, because it had really fallen apart in many ways. I worked for the AP. I worked with a number of photographers, most of whom are a part of this fundraiser. And this moment has been a chance to do something, to not feel entirely paralyzed by the situation, and to reconnect with the many AP photographers and editors who are involved in this project.
David, the life of a war photographer sometimes is let's say glorified in movies and films, and sometimes it's just made out to be aspirational in a way, if you know what I mean. Like the people who are journalism students often look up to war journalists and their work. At the same time, the things on the ground are so complex, I'm sure. Were you in any way prepared for this role? Of course, you have had a wide spectrum of experiences. So is there a difference in how Afghanistan was as opposed to other war zones, let's say compared to, or conflict zones, if not really war zones?
Well, I have photographed in quite a few, conflicts, civil conflicts, wars in the world as a photographer for AP. And I think that in almost all cases, I entered into those spaces or those countries thinking I was going to be photographing something other than war. And that's true of Afghanistan as well. I obviously went there first in response to, 9/11, but I thought I was there photographing. I didn't see an American or international soldier for the first 6 or 7 years. I was staying in Kabul with my fellow AP photographers, including Afghan photographers, and we were covering daily life. So the photography of war there was a kind of showing a sort of deterioration of the situation.
So when you say that you were in Kabul and for the first 6 to 7 years, you didn't really see an American soldier. Is that right? Is that how it was? So that seems really a long time. And why was that so? I mean, were there certain regions therefore, and you were covering from Kabul?
I was, even at that time, traveling freely around the country. I was photographing sort of the changes in Afghan life, issues around, human rights, economic issues, the lives of women. Then, the insurgency really strengthened. The United States doubled down and started, bringing in many, many more troops, and it became a huge war again. But it really wasn't, even in 2001, it wasn't like that, where it was largely an Afghan civil conflict and an Afghan story. And then it became an American war from about 2008 onward.
So what was let's say, the reaction of the Afghan people to Americans in general and American war photographers, really?
Well, I would say that it was, it's probably fair to say that an American photographer like me was photographing one side of the situation. I wasn't free to work, on the side of the insurgency or the Taliban. So, I was living and working among people who were, allied with the international U.S.-led occupation. Maybe it's worth mentioning that, when international media arrived, we brought with us, a sort of bucket of ideals. One being, what we think of the role of media, journalists. And so the photographers who I worked with, men and women, in Afghanistan, were people who, saw themselves in that role that we brought to them. And I feel like this fundraiser is just a very tiny little reaction to wanting, or a hope to, continue to support people who, who bought into this ideal and we're trying to do the thing that we all say that we want to do as photojournalists.
You spoke about the fundraiser, and this is for women journalists. So I want to ask you now, David, that did you meet women journalists of Afghanistan on the ground? What kind of situation do they face? They must be it must be so particularly challenging, even doubly so. Give us a picture. You are our eyes to that country. What's it like to be an Afghan woman reporting, or even women reporting in Afghanistan?
You know, it maybe goes without saying how vital it is to have to support women journalists. And we can't really expect to understand the world if we're only getting our stories and our information from one perspective, only from men. And that's especially true in Afghanistan, where many of the most important stories being told are about the rights of women. And it's male photographers who like me, who would have tried to photograph some of these issues and just don't have the perspective or the access or the understanding that a female journalist, a woman journalist, has in Afghanistan. To become a journalist in Afghanistan as a woman, there's obstacles beyond what women would face in other countries in terms of access to education, the acceptance of women in sort of public life. Women are under extreme threat. It's this year where we had 3 women working for a television station in Jalalabad gunned down in front of their office. It was always an extremely difficult path and a very dangerous profession for brave women doing it, and especially now. And I think that we're all really concerned and terrified for what's to come for women, especially women in public life.
You've spoken for us, for many of us, when you say that you're not terrified for what's to come, particularly for women journalists. I'm going to take a moment to quickly go to Yirmiyan, my colleague on the Network of Women in Media India, who's in a way a very crucial part of the fundraiser. And for anybody who missed that link when we were trying to overcome glitches, to have this conversation in the first place, can we have a quick word on the fundraiser? How people can actually support this NWMI fundraiser, buy those photographs? Please tell us about that. If you can unmute yourself.
If you look at the fundraiser, I think, like I said, it was a very spontaneous thing that happened. And I don't find myself equipped enough to even explain about what happens in the second half of that, because this is something that comes with years and years of experience with people like Lakshmi, who have built, some of the members in NWMI have like this really strong network across South Asia, Afghanistan included. And so in the mornings and in the evenings, she's sending us messages about the kind of messages, the text messages, the audio messages that she's receiving from women journalists in Afghanistan that she's been in touch with over the years, 2 decades, some of them. So I think it's up to people like Lakshmi. And we've also teamed up with this international organization, Media Safety and Solidarity Fund, because this is something that needs a lot of coordination, and we need hands and people with experience. And, everybody knows how tough it is to get things into Afghanistan right now. Like we say in Hindi, it's called jugaad, right? I mean, like, you try and figure out how to do things, and then you put a tire of something into something else, and any which way that it works, you got to get the car driving in that kind of a situation. So people like Lakshmi have been doing that. And in fact, even today, we were the first person that I think, I can say this, Lakshmi, I hope, the first person that was directly helped by this effort landed in Islamabad today. I don't think I can take her name, and they're trying to find a place for her to stay in, because a lot of these kind of work is happening, and it is people like Lakshmi and a lot of these people who are leading the NWMI who is in charge of what happens after this fundraiser. I mean, thank you to everyone who's contributed, really. I mean, it has meant a lot, and you all must know, those who have contributed, you have to know that you are able to change lives of people. I mean, I sent a note out to the photographers who have contributed here, because without the Associated Press and without the photographs that they have so graciously and generously donated, we couldn't have had this fundraiser, couldn't have been possible. So deep gratitude to the AP and all the 24 photographers who are involved in this. I say 24 because even if Anya is gone, like, she's a big part of this. And it's been a chance for us to remember what a great photojournalist and what a great human being she was when she was alive. So, I mean, yeah, so sorry, I think David, yes, I don't know how much time he has, but yeah.
No,
Yes, David.
sorry. Yeah, I'd gladly follow up just on that about the 24 AP photographers. Ann Yen, who is an AP editor who I met first when I first moved to India. These were all people who I guess grew up with, working at the AP, and this has been a chance to reconnect with many of you, and I miss everyone so much. And the photographers who are part of this were, this working family that was traveling from India and all across the world, and Afghan photographers, men and women, who all pitched in together over the 20 years. And most notably, I would say, is the women photographers are part of them. Laura Rauch, who also drove most Afghan in 2001 when the war began. Farzana Wahidi, an Afghan woman who didn't even have access to high school education under the Taliban, and who went on to be the first Afghan woman professional photographer, international photographer. Maya Alarusso, Suzanne Plunkett, and of course Anya Niedringhaus, who we all loved and lost when she was killed by a police officer while covering the Afghan elections. So these are this is a chance for all of us to feel that we can try to help in some small way. And it feels very personal, I think, to me and to all of the photographers and to Yen. And I think it's a chance for me to own an Anya Niedringhaus or a Farzana Wahidi photograph, and feel like that my $100 for these beautiful prints is going towards something important.
Indeed, very important. And the initiative and the people, the photographers who are actually lending their works and creation for this cause. I would like to now share a screen and try to play out from David's own account on this Instagram page. I urge all of you to visit it in case you've already not done that, which is called the Journalists for Afghanistan. It is an initiative by the Network of Women in Media India. And as Yirmiyan has been sharing, she's a photo editor with the Associated Press. She's been telling us about how this idea came through and how different photojournalists and war photographers have come together to make this possible as a reach out to women journalists in Afghanistan. Let's now try and watch this clip that tells us more. So, David, I wish to ask you as we kind of begin to end this conversation. I also, in case people who are watching us on Facebook and will have any questions, you can type those out in the comment section. We do have David for a few minutes more. So in case you have anything specific to ask him or to Yirmiyan, you could do that. But David, one of the things that we were mentioning is about how we have lost some of these journalists to this war, and particularly how vulnerable the women journalists have been. But when this incident, or rather the most recent incidents of the US pulling out happened, did you see this coming from your understanding on the ground? And when you even went back into other things, you must have kept a close eye on Afghanistan. So did you see the events unfold as the way they are, and what kind of emotions do you feel at the moment? I mean, is there anything at all that can change? What's your understanding? David, I don't know if you're on mute at the moment. I'm not able to hear you.
On the failure of intelligence. I mean, I guess I would speak about it just personally, and I was watching it unfold, and I was just personally very scared for the people who I know and love, colleagues who are there and outside of the country now. I feel like as an individual and others who put a great deal of energy into wanting to do some good for Afghanistan, it just feels a bit, you feel a bit powerless and helpless in this moment. And I think that was, that was Yen's reaction, probably staying up all night wondering what she could do as a photo editor, as a member of the media. And so I was grateful to be a part of this too, because it was something I could do.
So in terms of, let's say the American people's reaction to what's happening here, and in terms of, do they sort of feel responsible that the administration is in a way of letting down the people of Afghanistan? What's the sentiment in the US back home for you?
Well, this has been part of our American life for 20 years. The role and responsibility that we all have in this. I can't say that there's a unified position on this or anything else in the United States. We're a very divided country. I think that the thing that is most interesting to me right now to follow and to understand is the Afghan evacuees, and the biggest movement and migration of people to this country since of its kind since the Vietnam War. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how those many people are welcomed into our country, and especially in this 9/11 context in a very divided country.
Yes, of course. It's not like a monolith, and I can imagine that it's a whole spectrum of opinions and views. We have a question from the audience, and I think that might be best answered by you, Yirmiyan. Nadira Kotikolin, who wants to know that is this fundraising by the Network of Women in Media, India, to enable the journalists to leave the country to safer places, or is it meant to support them for contributing to report from there? Yeah.
I think the answer is it is to help Afghan women journalists in any which way possible. They could be outside the country looking for accommodation, looking for ways to, settle somewhere. There could be people who are wanting to leave the country and do not have the resources to do that. There could be those who still want to continue doing what they want to. So I mean, it's just, we've not restricted it into like, it's for plane tickets or anything like that. It's for like any which way we can help any of these women journalists who are approaching, who we hear about and who we can help. I mean, yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think another question that's coming in is that in terms of the specific target or beneficiaries of being women journalists, are you also in touch with the Afghan people in general, or let's say women in general? So what kind of messages have you been receiving, Yirmiyan? How are people even able to make contact with the outside world from wherever they are in or wherever they are trapped in? And that's something which even David can tell us if there have been people who are reaching out to you from there, and how.
I know David has been helping with Too Young to Wed, which is another initiative by a group of photographers. So I'm sure he can expound on that too. But quickly to speak about NWMI, like I said, I mean, there have been the members who are in touch with the journalists there, they have been receiving messages every day regularly. Like I said, today, one of them got to Pakistan safely, to Islamabad, for which we're very thankful. So from the beginning, like, for example, there was a message that would say, hey, Lakshmi, I'm in Qatar. I got into, and now I'm in the airport. I can't send you email, but right now we got some signal. So I'm sending you this voice message to tell you that I'm okay, but I've got here safely. Or somebody else was saying that, there's this other journalist who has very, very bravely decided on her Instagram account to share the artwork of another artist who cannot do it in her own name. So this journalist has decided to post these. So we have all of these. So there are several of these really brave women journalists that members of the NWMI are in touch with. David, what would you like to say about what you've been doing too? I know that, yeah.
Yes, David.
Well, I personally, I have been, I've been volunteering some time with Too Young to Wed, which is an organization started by Stephanie Sinclair, photographer, who started the organization following, work that she's done around child marriage. But she and a bunch of amazing powerhouse women have just been working around the clock to funnel all of their resources and time towards the evacuation of young women and girls who are, in extreme risk because of their role in the government or media, etc. Their efforts are around the evacuation of people, and I think that this organization and your efforts are different in that they are broadly looking at how they can assist Afghan women journalists both in and out of the country. In terms of communication, it's been amazing to see all of the many ways that women have been communicating using text programs and the avatars on mobile video games and different ways that people are communicating. And I've been watching as these organizations receive photographs from the neighboring borders and arriving with celebrations and airports in the Middle East and Europe. So if it's about communication, it's been kind of a fascinating thing to see how people can continue to communicate and connect.
Yeah, that's somewhere a ray of hope, however bleak it is. Well, how about the children, David? So at this point, what an uncertain future someone who have just recently entered the world have to face, and it just seems so unrelenting, the situation there. But during your stay there in the education system, or the children who you got to meet, any sense of what's happening with the kids there?
Well, I mean, I guess if we're speaking specifically about schools, education, and young women and girls, I think that there's already like indication that there's going to be a reversal and opportunity for girls in schools and education, and that's very worrying. And what I know about that comes from international and Afghan media that I'm trying to follow, like everyone else.
There is a question from Shruti Manjula Mohan, and she wants to ask you that, David, when we hear of Afghanistan, we see scary visuals of Taliban, and that precedes all the other memory or learning of the region. How do you remember Afghanistan?
How do I remember it? You ask about how I was, I guess, how people's reaction to me, an American journalist in Afghanistan. I mean, I guess I'd answer the question with just a very personal feeling, which is that despite the animosity between parts of Afghanistan and the United States, despite the war, I was treated with such kindness, and I was welcomed. I never had a quarrel with someone in Afghanistan, and I'm very grateful for.
Is there a language you picked up? I mean, let's say the Pashtun, or was English the language you used?
I used English, and with an Afghan translator I work closely with, and Afghan photographers. Although I did try to learn to speak some Dari at least. And one of the photographers who's a member of this fundraiser, the great Tomas Munita, whenever we would go out whenever we were outside in the streets, people, especially children, would always ask to have their photo taken. They would say "Aksmar Bigi." Sorry for my pronunciation, but Tomas would always stop whenever someone said that and asked for their photograph, and he would stop and he would make these beautiful, honest portraits of people. And at the end of his year and a half living in Kabul, he did an exhibition of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of portraits of people, all of whom walked up to him and asked to take my photograph in Dari, and he responded. And I remember that as being one of the most beautiful and honest and straightforward photography that anyone did in Afghanistan when I was there.
There is a message of someone remembering Danish Siddiqui, whom we lost as well, the Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist, embedded journalists, and we have spoken earlier before in this interview about loss of lives. Lakshmi Murthy wishes to ask you, what has been the role of civil society in the US? Is the Afghan crisis on anyone's mind at all?
I'd like to say so. It certainly was in the top of the news and the top of politics over the last few weeks. I don't think that it would be fair to say that it is in the top of the minds of American people who who generally their attention is somewhere else. And even after 20 years of this war, I don't think that it's the priority of Americans right now, especially right now coming off of 2020 and COVID and everything else. I wish that it was. I think that it's not.
I wish to remind people who are watching us, even as David has been sharing with us absolute ground experiences from Afghanistan. And we have had Yirmiyan speak about the fundraiser of NWMI. I would like to repeat that if anybody wishes to support the women journalists of Afghanistan, there is also the Instagram page. Please look for Journalists for Afghanistan. Yani, would you like to elaborate a little bit more before we end this conversation about how people can buy those prints, and till what date is this open?
Yes. Yeah, so the initial idea was to keep it till September 30th. We began on the 8th of September. This was like a good 3 weeks. But we're receiving a lot of requests since last night saying like, please, can you, because we just heard about it. We want to tell more people about it and stuff like that. And so would we like to wait if there is an opportunity for us to be able to garner more support, then we would be glad to do that. So, I mean, we have decided to shift it for 2 more days till September the 2nd. So in October the 2nd instead of September 30th. So we have 2 more days. Yeah, that is the thing.
Yes. So how much do these cost, in case you also want to give those details so that people can go ahead
right.
and do that?
Right. Each print is for $100 for those in India, and for those who are outside the country, it is $100 plus $20 for shipping. And that's, yeah, I mean, that's about it. And we've started a printing process. We will ship it all together once we close orders, because we are a small group who are handling this. And so it was not logistically possible for us to keep like a running print and send. So we're just waiting for all the orders to come in. So yeah, that is yeah. But can I just like take an opportunity while David's here again to just say again, David, thank you, like for I mean, it's just for us to have you here, like for you to agree. I mean, we know you're busy, we know you have to go, but I mean, this could not have been possible really without your support. And I truly mean it, because you have been a front runner in, just amplifying this. And that gave us a lot of encouragement, because even though we had the photographs, even though we had this fundraiser up, even though we had the AP permission, we didn't know what next. But like somebody like you coming forward and saying, hey, I'm going to collaborate. And that's exactly what you said, tell me when, and I will collaborate, I will put the word out. And those kind of things, like that's what encouraged us, and that's what kept us going. And really, David, like, thank you so much. Yeah.
All the thanks goes to you, Yan. I would love to tell everyone here, just all of that you have done for the AP, and in particular in this, this was your idea, and I wanted to be a part of it because of you. And so thank you so much. And all of the AP photographers, there's not many days left in the fundraiser. I'm one of the guilty ones who's waited until the very last minute. So this deadline is a good fire underneath me, because I want to make sure that I get my chance to buy a print from Ani House, Emilio Morinati, all the great people, all the great photographers who I had a chance to work with in the AP family. So thank you all for this, and I hope everyone will support this efforts.
David, there are a couple of more questions coming in. So is that okay to ask you? Sure. So this question says that, what is your impression about the aspect of patriarchy? And that is, would Taliban have got a foothold there if the society itself was not patriarchal?
I think to simplify the question, I think it's the the threats and the worries that we're talking about, that women media facing now, did those exist before? Did those exist 3 weeks ago before the Taliban's return? And yes, many of those problems existed in Afghanistan in ways that are much harsher than in other parts of the world. So I don't think that, I think the question is, is this a black and white situation where everything was rosy a month ago? And that's for sure not true. But I do think that, for the women who have really surmounted obstacles that none of us could imagine, and who have been incredibly brave to be a part of Afghan media in this situation, I think that it is, I think it's all of our responsibility to try and support them, especially now.
In many ways, people like you, media people who have been our eyes in parts of the world where we cannot even imagine being able to go to. So there are many thanks messages that are coming in. For instance, Amu Joseph would like to say thank you very much, David, for being here, for sharing your work for the fundraiser, and for doing the work in the first place, bringing the realities of Afghanistan to us in the rest of the world. There is also Supriya Nair, who shared about where the images can be seen on Instagram, and all those who wish to buy the prints, the kind of the details, and also this particular website, the Journalists for Afghanistan, this whole website will also be shared on this Facebook and Zoom comment section for people to visit. So it is just to enable people to do whatever they can. So on that note, it's time to thank our guest once again. Where does your work take you next, David? Because from the world of Afghanistan and boy, you've also moved to conservation and Nat Geo. So do tell us what's happening there and where can we follow your work?
I'm here in the United States, where I have been living since 2014, and my work is largely focused on the US, especially now since coronavirus has forced us to all work in our own sort of backyards. My interest now and my work now will be about the arrival of evacuees from Afghanistan, and what that will look like.
Great. So thank you so much, David, and thanks, Yirmiyan. I think despite the glitches that we were facing in terms of making this accessible to a lot of people, I think we've succeeded in having a little bit of the intended conversation, at least. And David, you've been very patient to kind of see all the trials go through. Hopefully, in a better time when we are able to have a seamless one, we would request you to be back with us for an interaction sometime else also, if that's possible.
Thank you so much. I really am grateful for everything that your organization is doing, and thanks for having me and be a part of this.
Thank you. And on that note, we would like to close this, wrap this conversation, but not before I have mentioned it one last time, because it is put out with such a sincere intention. And it's not something that many people even get to help. I mean, I've had people say that, Vasanthi, we've seen this horrific images before us on WhatsApp forwards, on different media, but it just makes us feel that what are we even doing? So that is why the conversation was titled, what can we do, being in whichever part of the world? I'm afraid that's not something which is going to probably directly impact, but if the women and if the people of Afghanistan are even able to realize that there are people, whether in the United States, India, or whichever country, who are looking out for them, or in some way would like to help or reach out whenever there's even a little window, even in the future, we will do that. And the Network of Women in Media India is certainly committed, which is where the fundraiser came from. So to all my own colleagues, Lakshmi Murthy, Supriya Nair, and Yirmiyan, who's been here, and so many other people who've been amplifying these voices, a collective thanks. And let's continue to do the right thing. And with that, it's time for me, Vasanthi Hariprakash, to sign off while thanking our guests once more, and also the Associated Press. Yirmiyan, would you like to have the last word in respect of this fundraiser and anything else at all?
I wish David would, because like David, I mean, I wish you would, like, if I don't know whether you would say it last words or so, but you've seen the war and you've worked with AP for 20 years. And I mean, I'm very proud to be part of the AP today for, you know, for enabling this to happen. And I mean, is it like, for me, I'm stunned this happened. David, do you miss working with a news organization? Do you miss, I mean, your latest was the electric vehicles, right? It's a completely different thing. Just leave us with some last thoughts about, about your,
I do miss, I do miss being able to contribute more to stories, especially something like watching everything unfolding in Afghanistan. I do feel that I wish that I could contribute more. And I miss the AP. I miss the people of the AP. It was my family. And so thank you for this. It's been a good, an opportunity for me to reconnect with with you and a lot of the other photographers at the AP. So the last word is, I just hope that people will support this. I'm really grateful for all that you're doing. And it's a chance to own a print by some of the great journalists at the AP who are friends and colleagues, and a chance to support the brave women who are working in and outside of Afghanistan as journalists.
Thank you. Thank you once again. I can see, you know, whether with Yirmiyan or with all of us, we are almost reluctant to let you go. Trying to hold on with as many questions. So let's just look at this, Jan, as a kind of a beginning, given this initiative, and it's fantastic to have people like David on this journey. On that note, thank you, everybody, once again. Please look out for the recordings that will be shared on the NWMI page on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Look for journalists for Afghanistan. That's the very least that we can do, and spread this word as much as you can. Be our ambassadors. Thank you, adab and namaskara.